Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We offer our salutations to Ramana, who shines as the Self in all beings. And we begin today's Saturday Satsang with prayer, which will be chanted by Srimati Sapna. That will be followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekamaksharam Hridi Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Katam Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yamahamiti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Svam Chinvata Majjatava Pavanachalanarodhat Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Mrinmayavachchadatmakam Aham Buddhirnatasyaastyato Naham tattatapeta sukti samaye Siddhatma sadbhavataha Koham bhavayutakuto varadhiya Drishthatmanishtatmanam Soham spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the chanting of a few verses from Upadesa Saram of Bhagavan Ramana. कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं कृतिमहो ददौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाङ्मन कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगत ईषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृदेवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तव दुच्चमन्दत चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समं सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परं भेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमता भावशून्यसद्भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मन स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम्। ॐ नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय। Now we have the part where we offer Ramananjali Sangeetam. We have Ramananjali songs being offered by Srimati V. Radha, followed by Dr. Pratibha Sundaresh, and that presentation will be followed by Savitri Krishnan, Jaisriram Krishnan, and Revathi Sankar. We have the offerings of Ramananjali Sangeetam.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I have selected a song written by Vaibhavji Venkatesh. రమణుడు చూపిన మార్గము సరళము అనుసరణీయము. రమణుడు చూపిన మార్గము సరళము అనుసరణీయము. రమణుడు చెప్పిన వేదము పుణ్యప్రదము పఠనీయము. రమణుడు చెప్పిన వేదము పుణ్యప్రదము పఠనీయము. రమణుడు చూపిన మార్గము సరళము అనుసరణీయము. స్వార్థ జీవులకు అర్థము కానిది సదాచారులకు సుగ్రాహ్యం ఇది. స్వార్థ జీవులకు అర్థము కానిది సదాచారులకు సుగ్రాహ్యం ఇది. మంగళప్రదమిది మహిత శక్తి ఇది. మంగళప్రదమిది మహిత శక్తి ఇది. అరుణాచల కరుణా కటాక్షమిది. అరుణాచల కరుణా కటాక్షమిది. రమణుడు చూపిన మార్గము సరళము అనుసరణీయము. రమణుడు చూపిన మార్గము సరళము అనుసరణీయము. రమణుడు చెప్పిన వేదము పుణ్యప్రదము పఠనీయము. రమణుడు చెప్పిన వేదము పుణ్యప్రదము పఠనీయము. రమణుడు చూపిన మార్గము సరళము అనుసరణీయము. సరళము అనుసరణీయము. సరళము అనుసరణీయము. రమణ మార్గము సరళ మార్గము. రమణ మార్గము సరళ మార్గము. రమణ మార్గము అనుసరణీయము. రమణ మార్గము అనుసరణి. ರಮಣ ಮಾರ್ಗಮು ಮಹಿತ ಶಕ್ತಿಯು ರಮಣ ಮಾರ್ಗಮು ಮಹಿತ ಶಕ್ತಿಯು ರಮಣ ಮಾರ್ಗಮು ಮಂಗಳಪ್ರದಮು ರಮಣ ಮಾರ್ಗಮು ಮಂಗಳಪ್ರದಮು ರಮಣ 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 ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. This is the original composition of Muruganar Swami's, the famous Vaitapattu, describing Bhagwan as the master of placement of all things in this world and beyond. He alone governs the whole world, and he knows where to place what at what time. The what, where, and how of everything is by him alone, and our limited mind would never be able to understand the what and why of anything in this world. This composition of Muruganar Swami tells us to take refuge at the feet of Bhagwan within. ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ಅದರ ಚಲನೆಗೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡಿದವನು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ಚಲನೆಗೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡಿದವನು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ಪ್ರಾಣವನ್ನು ಇರಿಸಿದವನು ಪ್ರಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಚ್ಚರವ ಹರಿಸಿದವನು ಅನ್ನದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಣವನ್ನು ಇರಿಸಿದವನು ಪ್ರಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಚ್ಚರವ ಹರಿಸಿದವನು ಕಣ್ಣಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಟ ವೈಭವವ ನಡೆಸಿದವನು ಭಯಪಡುವ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಇರಲಿ ಅವನ ಕೃಪೆಯು ನಭವ ನಿರ್ಮಲಗೈದ ರಮಣನೊಲವು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ಅದರ ಚಲಿಗೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡಿದವನು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ಹೂವಿನಲಿ ಪರಿಮಳವ ಮುಡಿಸಿದವನು ಕನಸಿನಲು ಅರಿವನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸಿದವನು ಹೂವಿನಲಿ ಪರಿಮಳವ ಮೊಳೆಸಿದವನು ಕನಸಿನಲು ಅರಿವನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸಿದವನು ನೀಲ ಕಮಲವ ಜರಿವ ನಯನ ಸತಿಯೆಡೆಗೆ ತನ್ನ ಹರಿಸಿದವನು ಶಂಕಿಸುವ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಇರಲಿ ಅವನ ಕೃಪೆಯು ಕಾಮನನೂರಿಸಿದ ದೇವನೊಲವು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ಹಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಾಳಿದವನು ಕೊರಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷವನ್ನು ಹೂಳಿದವನು ಕಣಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಣ್ಣನ್ನು ತಾಳಿದವನು ಕೊರಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷವನ್ನು ಹೂಳಿದವನು ಚಿತ್ತದೊಳು ಶಕ್ತಿಯನು ಮಿಲನದೊಳು ಮುಕ್ತಿಯನು ಹರಿಯನು ಆಸೆಯನು ಕರ್ಪವ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಇರಲಿ ಅವನ ಕೃಪೆಯು ಚಟೆ ಹೊತ್ತ ದೇವನ ದಿವ್ಯ ದಯೆಯು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವ ಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ನೆನೆಗೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡಿದವನು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವ ಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದವನು ನೆನೆಗೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡಿದವನು ಯಾರು ವಿಶ್ವವ ಹೀಗೆ ಹೂಡಿದವನು. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Paurnami or full moon in our tradition assumes special spiritual significance. Apart from the seemingly mundane phenomenon of the sea waves rising or soaring higher than on any other day, there are other spiritual events associated with Paurnami. Just to name a few, the famed Annamalai Deepam on Kartika Paurnami, the Vyasa Puja, Guru Purnima that we celebrate on the Guru Purnima day, Buddha Purnima, and so on. In fact, our Acharya Sri Shankara Bhagavad Pada has also had references to Paurnami in many of his works. Of all the 12 full moons in a year, the one in autumn, that is Sharad Purnima, which we witnessed a few days ago, is said to be the brightest as it covers all the 16 kalas or phases of the moon. The famed Rasa Leela at Vrindavan takes place also during Sharad Purnima. In the context of Bhagavan, special events are associated with Paurnami, such as the Sri Chakra Puja that is offered to Sri Matru Bhuteshwara Lingam on every Paurnami. Of course, the now famed Girivalam on every Paurnami. Bhagavan, it is said, used to have a head shave once a month on a Paurnami day. Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni refers to Bhagavan as Neerara Vinda Suhrada, comparing his grace with that of the rays of the moon. Of all the poets, Sri Jagadishwara Shastri compares Bhagavan's face to the autumn moon, that is Sar Chandra, which we witnessed a couple of days ago. We will read a translation of this in English from Sri Kamesh's work on Sri Jagadishwara Shastri, following which we will render that verse in Sanskrit, and also a composition where the poet compares the luster on Bhagavan's face to that of the moon. Dhyayet Sarada Chandra Sundara Mukham Tamrara Vindekshanam. He of beautiful autumn moon face, of red lotus eyes, who grants all boons that devotees desire, gives freedom from fear, who is resplendent, wearing but a lion cloth, who is spontaneously absorbed in the experience of the rasa of the self, whose every limb is of faultless beauty, he Ramaneshwara, the abode of all Shri, the Supreme Guru, seated in Yogasana, I meditate upon.
ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदायकम् करम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गतम् श्रीमन्तं रमणेश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् रमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् रमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् रमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् रमणेश्वरम् रमणा भवद कत्तले हरिसो दिव्यचरणा ವಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ ತಾಯಿ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಮಗುವು ತಾವುಳಿವುದೇನೋ ಪಶುಪತಿಯೇ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಪಶು ನರಳದೇನೋ ತಾಯಿ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಮಗುವು ತಾವುಳಿವುದೇನೋ ಪಶುಪತಿಯೇ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಪಶು ನರಳದೇನೋ ವಿಧಿಯದುರು ನಿಂತ ಮಾನವನ ಬಗೆಯೇನೋ ವಿಧಿಯದುರು ನಿಂತ ಮಾನವನ ಬಗೆಯೇನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆ ತಪ್ಪಿದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗತಿಯೇನು ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆ ತಪ್ಪಿದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗತಿಯೇನು ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಹುಣ್ಣಿಮೆಯ ಚಂದಿರನ ಕಣ್ಣೆದುರು ತರುವ ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಖ ಮಂಡಲದಿ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಸೆಳೆವ ಹುಣ್ಣಿಮೆಯ ಚಂದಿರನ ಕಣ್ಣೆದು ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಖ ಮಂಡಲದಿ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಸೆಳೆವ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ನಯನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ಕರುಣೆ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ನಯನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ಕರುಣೆ ಹೊಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ನಿನ್ನಂತರಾಳದ ಮಹಿಮೆ ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ
ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀ ರಮಣಾಯ.
ನಮೋ Bhagavan's eyes has been described by many poets and many people. It is the magnet which pulls all the devotees to him. And his smile is the one which destroys all our fears and sorrows. He has the golden complexion, golden body, which helps us get over. The rupa of his gets us over all our sorrow. He helps us to get over the samsara sagara. This is a wonderful song presented, written by Dr. Sarada, music by L. Krishnan. அன்பு வடிவமே எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, அன்பு வடிவமே எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, ஒரு முறை நினைத்தாலுமே துன்பம் தீர்ப்பானே, ஒரு முறை நினைத்தாலுமே துன்பம் தீர்ப்பானே, அன்பு பொழிவானே இன்ப நிலை தருவானே, அன்பு பொழிவானே இன்ப நிலை தருவானே, எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, அன்பு வடிவமே எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, அன்பு வடிவமே எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சம் கண்களிலே கருணை கண்டாயா, கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சம் கண்களிலே கருணை கண்டாயா, அஞ்சல் அஞ்சல் என்று சொல்லும் சிரிப்பை கண்டாயா, அஞ்சல் அஞ்சல் என்று சொல்லும் சிரிப்பை கண்டாயா, கருணை கண்கள் கண்டாயா, உன் சிரிப்பை கண்டாயா, கருணை கண்கள் கண்டாயா, உன் சிரிப்பை கண்டாயா, பொன்மேனி கண்டாயா, திருப்பாதம் கண்டாயா, பொன்மேனி கண்டாயா, திருப்பாதம் கண்டாயா, பேரருளின் அழகை கண்டு மனமுருகி மகிழ்ந்தாயா, பேரருளின் அழகை கண்டு மனமுருகி மகிழ்ந்தாயா, எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, அன்பு வடிவமே எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, அன்பு வடிவமே எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே, எங்கள் ரமண தேவனே. நமோ ரமண.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We come to the part of the satsang where we have reading and sharing by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we have been reading from the book Ramana's Muruganar, a birth centenary celebration, compiled and edited by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have been reading the account of Sri Sadhu Om, and we are nearing the end of that account. The article is entitled Sri Muruganar, the right hand of Sri Bhagavan. Sri Muruganar, the right hand of Sri Bhagavan. We have been reading that portion where Sadhuam concludes that there are two main reasons for Muruganar getting Atma Sakshatkaram by Bhagavan's grace. One of them is his undivided, unblemished devotion, total devotion to Bhagavan. Sorry. And the second reason is because his mind is not corrupted with many practices. So Bhagavan is able to write, we begin there again. The second important reason that can be given to account for Sri Muruganar's attaining Brahma Sakshatkara by the grace of Sri Bhagavan is as follows. Though before coming to Sri Bhagavan, he was a great Tamil scholar and poet, Sri Muruganar had thoroughly studied only such literary works as would increase his mastery over the Tamil language. And he had not read any scriptures which expound the spiritual path. He had keenly studied and tried to follow only the Tirukural, which emphasizes since virtuous conduct bestows all good, virtuous conduct should be cherished more than one's life. That is Kural 131. But he had not studied any Vedantic texts analyzing philosophical principles, nor had he entangled himself in the frenzied clamor which goes on everywhere in the name of japa, dhyana, and yoga. The true love for God alone was steeped in his heart, and knowing that it is impossible to attain the fruit of human birth without a proper Sadguru, he was in a state of ever awaiting darshanam of the Sadguru. We had read up to this. We come to the concluding part. Though there were many people who came to Sri Bhagavan after studying many Vedanta, Yoga, and Jnana Shastras in various languages, and after cramming their minds full with unnecessary ideas which are of no use to spiritual practice, they were unable to gain full faith in the teachings of Sri Bhagavan, which are so very simple, yet which can so very easily and directly bestow the state of liberation, the true fruit of this human birth. Or even if they were able to gain a little faith in those teachings, they were unable to put them to practice, and thus, in despair, they finally departed from his presence. The reason for this was that even before coming to Sri Bhagavan, the minds of such people had been scribbled both by what they learnt about all such subjects as God, Jnana, Yoga, Shakti, Siddhi, Dharma, duty, and so on, and also by the various imaginations they had formed about such subjects in accordance with their own tastes, and hence, when written over such scribblings, even the true teachings of Sri Bhagavan Ramana Bhagavan became meaningless and useless lines, being obscured among all other scribbled lines. But the guileless, pure white heart of Sri Muruganar was like an unscribbled slate, being untainted by the darkness of the ensnaring, dense, vast forest of scriptures, Shastra Jala Maharanya. Hence, this was another important qualification which enabled him to attain self knowledge. That is, since Sri Muruganar came to Sri Bhagavan with a pure, empty, and clear mind, which was unburdened by the impression of any Shastras, he directly became a fit vessel to receive the grace and jnana of Sri Bhagavan. Having thus directly and from the very outset become a prey to the power of Sri Bhagavan's grace, in accordance with the words of Sri Bhagavan in verse 5 of Sri Arunachala Ashtakam, when the light of the sun has fallen upon a photographic plate, can any image be impressed upon that plate thereafter? Implying that in Muruganar's mind, once Bhagavan's grace wiped everything away, no new impressions could be found. Sri Muruganar attained firm self-knowledge in such a way that he could never be tainted or shaken by any other power or person. Though Sri Muruganar finally came to settle permanently in the presence of Sri Bhagavan in the year 1926, having outwardly renounced his home and having inwardly renounced all other attachments, for a long time after that, he continued to have long hair and to wear the sacred thread. This tuft and the sacred thread, those continued with him. Though his heart had attained the state of perfect renunciation by the grace of Sri Bhagavan, he did not wear the ochre cloth of a sannyasi. Though inwardly he was endowed with perfect maturity, in outward appearance he was accustomed to show himself to be no different from others. 1 or 2 years before Sri Bhagavan left his physical body, Sri Muruganar one day entered his hall at about 9 o'clock in the morning and prostrated before him. On that occasion, by the grace of Sri Bhagavan, I had the good fortune to be present there. Sadhu Om Swamigal is saying, I had the good fortune to be present there. Seeing his devotee lying prostrate on the ground, Sri Bhagavan remarked, "Oh, even that has gone. All right." Immediately, all of us who were present there looked at Sri Muruganar. His head was clean shaven, and his sacred thread was not to be seen on his chest. Then only did the significance of Sri Bhagavan's remark become clear to me. Thinking of the apt beauty of the way in which Sri Bhagavan had disclosed Sri Muruganar's inward and outward state of renunciation by his sacred words, I was overwhelmed with joy. Even that has gone, all right. What do these gracious words imply? Sadhuam Swamigal is introspecting. When Bhagavan has said, even the tough 10 sacred thread have gone, even that has gone, all right. What do these gracious words of Bhagavan imply? Do they not clearly reveal that prior to this, all the vasanas within had already gone, and that even the hair and the sacred thread, which had till then continued to adhere to him outwardly as mere appearances, had also now gone? Thus, these are precious words of the Sadguru confirming the completeness of Sri Muruganar's renunciation. I'll read that paragraph again. Even that has gone. All right. What do these gracious words imply? Do they not clearly reveal that prior to this, all the vasanas within had already gone, and that even the hair and sacred thread, which had till then continued to adhere to him outwardly as mere appearances, had now also gone? Thus, these are precious words of the Sadguru confirming the completeness of Sri Muruganar's renunciation. Another good fortune in connection with this incident is that many years later, a small note on a slip of paper came secretly to my hand from Sri Muruganar. That note, in the handwriting of Sri Muruganar, was what shortly before this incident he had hastily written and given to Sri Bhagavan, and then received back from him as a sign of his approval. In that note, Sri Muruganar had written, in addition to beseeching that the bhakti and vairagya in the form of jnana, which has arisen by the grace of Bhagavan at the feet of Bhagavan, should remain firm and natural in my heart, I secretly pray in solitude for Bhagavan's grace to change even the outward state to suit the inward state by only discarding the hair and sacred thread without wearing kashaya, your slave Murugan. This note Sadhuvam Swamigal comes upon. In the note, Muruganar, before the incident, had submitted to Bhagavan and got his approval. I'll read that note again. In addition to beseeching that bhakti and vairagya in the form of jnana, which has arisen by Bhagavan, grace of Bhagavan at the feet of Bhagavan, should remain firm and natural in the heart, I secretly pray in solitude for Bhagavan's grace to exchange even the outward state to suit the inward state by only discarding the hair and sacred thread without wearing kashaya, your slave Murugan. Even though Sri Bhagavan had thus on several occasions confirmed the fact that Sri Muruganar had attained self-knowledge, having renounced everything and having surrendered himself completely among the devotees of Sri Bhagavan, some of Sri Muruganar's contemporaries were unable to understand clearly his greatness. On one occasion, when Sri Bhagavan happened to overhear some people making disparaging comments about Sri Muruganar, he at once remarked in a calm tone, "The very day that Sannidhi Murai and Guru Vachaka Kovai came out, Muruganar became one among the very foremost devotees. By their disparaging him, his state will not be diminished in the least." I'll read that paragraph. This is the concluding paragraph. Even though Sri Bhagavan had thus on several occasions confirmed the fact that Sri Muruganar had attained self-knowledge, having renounced everything and having surrendered himself completely, among the devotees of Sri Bhagavan, some of Muruganar's contemporaries were unable to understand clearly his greatness. On one occasion, when Sri Bhagavan happened to overhear some people making disparaging comments about Sri Muruganar, he at once remarked in a calm tone, "The very day that Sannidhi Murai and Guruvachaka Kovai came out, Muruganar became one among the very foremost devotees. By their disparaging him now, his state will not be diminished in the least." Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. I request Sri Nandakumarji to continue the satsang with a self-enquiry session, practice session.
Namo Ramana. Before we commence the practice of Atmavicharam, it has been our mode to meditate on Bhagavan's words, Bhagavan's Upadesa on self-enquiry. Today I thought I will take up one of the verses from Ulladu Narpadu, verse number 4 in the body of the work. The two Mangala shlokas, then the first and second and third and fourth. The fourth verse, it is a all the verses are great pointers to self-enquiry. The meditation on Ulladu Narpadu is not to memorize Ulladu Narpadu and repeat it, but to be reminded of self-enquiry and start it. So this particular verse is a great support in that. It goes like this. Uruvam Tanayin Ulagu Paramatram Uruvam Tan Andrel Uvatrin Uruvate Kannurudal Yavan Yavan Kannalar Kachi Undo Kan Adutan Andamila Kanname. The benefit that I have received from this verse is that it not only reminds of self-enquiry, it also reveals the depth and power and directness of the teachings of self-enquiry, that Bhagavan says here, only if you have identified with the form, the world and God will appear like forms. If one has inquired into one's own true nature and in that self-attention erased one's form, then world's truth also becomes that self-attention. God's truth also becomes that self-attention. That is, such a tremendous task of crossing the samsara is made so direct and easy by Bhagavan by saying that only because you are identified with a stula uruvam or a sukshma uruvam does the world and also the God you worship appear to have a stula swarupa or a sukshma swarupa. If you inquire into who you are and remain in I attending to the I, then there is no perception of anything other than the self. Therefore, there is no world, there is no God apart. Inquiring into your own form, you bring the form of the world and form of the God to be one in the spiritual heart there. And it makes for sadhana, because whenever we see another and we are tempted to be carried away by what that person represents or what he has done or what he has not done, we should remember that we think of that person as a form, good person or bad person. We think of them as a form only because we have identified with the form ourselves. Immediately, one should come to the task of erasing one's form. I am seeing so and so as a form because I have identified with the Stula Sharira. I am seeing so and so as a thought because I have identified with the I thought. Therefore, for whom is this enquiry becomes so direct, the underlying hidden quest behind all the other quests is brought to the surface. This who am I remains as the final task hidden behind all the other sadhanas. But by this verse, it is brought out and one is able to focus why I am seeing my problem. Let us take the world is the problem and God is the solution. Why am I seeing my problem to be so hard or so subtle? It's because I have identified myself with a problem. I have identified myself with the Stula Swarupa or the thought form. That is why the form of the problem is also appearing solid or very subtle. When I erase my form by self attention, the problem gets dismantled and there is no God apart for me to seek and surrender. So the sadhana of Atmavicharam and its depth are revealed by this one verse. Uruvam Tanayin Ulag Paramatram. Uruvam Tanandre. Once you inquire into your form and come to the I, there is no world to remain as a problem and there is no solution apart. God being the solution for everything, He is no more apart from us. He is the very Adhara into which we have merged. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice of self-enquiry for the next 10 minutes or so. Ujwalji, you can set the time for us. Thank you so much. Namo Ramana.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with a sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji. He has been meditating on the verses of Adi Shankara's Anmabodham, and we are here to listen to him and his meditations on Atmabodham.
Namo Ramana. Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jnanamulam Gurur Murti Pujamulam Gurur Padam Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa. Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa. Moramana. We're doing Manana on Atmabodham, and last satsang we did verse number 41. Let's do a quick recap of that. On account of it being of the nature of soul knowledge and bliss, there are no distinctions of knower, knowledge and known in the Supreme Self. It verily shines by itself. On realization of the Self, the individual merges with the Brahman. The erstwhile experiencer also has further been experiencing the world of objects, becomes Brahman. When you become one with the Brahman, these distinctions vanish. Thereafter, Brahman alone exists, nothing else. You gain all your knowledge through the media of your body, mind and intellect. You become the knower of your perceptions, emotions, thoughts. You are conditioned by your material equipments. When you transcend these conditions and establish your identity with the self within, you drop the status of the known. Thereafter, you become one with the absolute knowledge, where there is no distinction as knower, known and knowing. Similarly, you use your body, mind and intellect to gain finite joys of the world. When you drop the equipments and become one with the Supreme Self, you attain absolute bliss. In that experience, there is no subject-object relationship. Today we'll do Manana on verse number 42. Request Sapna to kindly chant the verses.
Yes, sir. Namo Ramana. एवम् आत्मारणौ ध्यानमतने सततं कृते उदितावगतिज्वाला सर्व अज्ञान इन्धनं दहेत् एवम् आत्मारणौ ध्यानमतने सततं कृते उदितावगतिज्वाला सर्व अज्ञान इंदनं दहेत. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. Thus, on the wood of Atman, churning of contemplation, constant churning of contemplation, when done, knowledge is born, and all the ignorance is burnt up. Thus, by the constant churning of contemplation on the wood of Atman, the flame of knowledge is born, which burns up the entire fuel of ignorance. Evam means thus. It indicates a conclusion drawn after having explained the subject of contemplation and meditation in the foregoing verses. When you reject the lower self and attune with the higher self, you gain the knowledge of the self. You then destroy all your vasanas. You no longer suffer the limitations of an individual existence. The metaphor of churning of knowledge appears in the Kaivalya Upanishad. In the Vedic period, fire was invoked for performing rituals. A wooden rod was held lightly between two other wooden pieces, which was scooped in to accommodate the two ends of the rod. The rod was then turned in the clockwise and anti-clockwise directions to generate heat by friction. This process was continued till the fire was generated. The fire then consumed the entire fuel placed in the trough for the purpose of the ritual. The ash left behind was distributed to the participants of the ritual. It was smeared on the foreheads in three stripes. An interesting point to note is the ritual is that fire is generated from the wood itself and not obtained from a different source. Fire is said to be inherent in the wood as an unmanifested form. By the process of churning, the unmanifest fire in the wood is brought into manifestation. Similarly, the Atman resides within us. We do not recognize it. The process of contemplation and meditation brings out the Atman to our cognition. I read this very important point. It says an interesting point to note in this ritual is that the fire is generated from the wood itself and not obtained from a different source. Fire is said to be inherent in the wood in an unmanifested form. By the process of churning, the unmanifest fire in the wood is brought into manifestation. Similarly, the Atman resides within us. We do not recognize it. The process of contemplation and meditation brings out the Atman to our cognition. In the metaphor, the fuel represents our vasanas, that is, ignorance of the self. The upper wooden block stands for the Supreme Self, the lower block for the lower self, the ego. The lower is united with the higher by meditation following the process of negation and assertion. Thus, by constantly negating your lower self and asserting your higher self, you gain the knowledge of the self. When more and more of this knowledge is gathered, the ignorance vasanas is destroyed and the misconception of a pluralistic world disappears. The state of supreme knowledge is your inherent self, nature. The glory of this achievement is proudly declared by symbolically smearing the ashes on your forehead. Vibhuti, ashes, means glory, splendor, and magnificence. The three stripes on the forehead indicate the transcendence of the three conditions in you, which may be taken as sattva, rajas, and tamas, or gross, subtle, and causal bodies, or knower, known, and knowledge. So beautiful. Basically, this verse talks about the churning. It says you can continuously keep on churning. The fire is unmanifested in the wood. Similarly, the Atma, when you say Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram, we understand it at Shravana time. We understand that the God is there. But how do you do that? By constant contemplation, by constant meditation. What happens? It is like that wood which will rub against the wood, and then what will happen? The fire will come out. Similarly, he says, thus on the wood of Atman, it's like that churning of contemplation, constant contemplation. When done, knowledge will be born, and the ignorance which is in the form of fuel will all get burnt up. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We move on to the next part of the satsang, where we are meditating on the verses of Ramanacentre written by Ganapati Muni, and they have been compiled and given to us in the format of Ramanacentre by Ramana himself. And we were in this verse 37, which is very apt for the Navaratri which happened recently, where Ramana is described as the three Devis. Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Devim Shaktiriyam Drisho Shritajana Dvantakshayadayinim, Devim Shririyam Ambujakshamahishi Vaktre Sahasrachade, Devi Brahmavaduriyam Vijayate Vyahara Gudapara, Vishwacharya Mahanubhava Ramana Tvam Stautuka Prakritaha, Ramanam Gurum Namami, 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 Ramanam Gurum Namami. This verse has been set to a raga called Nada Nama Kriya by Srimati Sulochana Natarajan. One of the famous kriti of Purandara Dasa is set to this raga, where Purandara Dasa sings Dasana Madi Koyenna Swami Sasira Namada Venkateramana Dasana Madi Koyenna. The meaning of Dasa, Sadhu Swami in another song, he says, the one who has completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord is a true Dasa. If a Dasa is telling, I want this, I want that, I want the master to give me this, I want master to do it like this, I want the master to do this and that and that and this, then he is not a true dasa. He is not a servant, because servant does not have any choice. He just has to surrender and wait for the instructions from the Supreme Master. That is being a dasa. And here Ganapati Muni says, O Vishwacharya Mahanubhava Ramana Tvam Stautukaha Prakritaha. Prakritaha means a common man, an ordinary man. How an ordinary man describe you, sing your glory, do stuti of you, O Vishwacharya Mahanubhava Ramana, says Ganapati Muni. Although Ganapati Muni was a great Sanskrit scholar, he had got the title Kavya Kanta in the assembly of scholars in Navadvipa, and he had understood all the Vedas, all the Shastras, all the Puranas. He had done everything that had to be done. Yet he says, I am a Prakrita, I am a common man. How can I describe your glory, says Ganapati Muni. That is to show that how a disciple is so humble, a true disciple is humble. He is never greater than his master. It is told in the Shastras that you should never show Advaita in front of the Guru and in the Vyavahara. In these two places, you cannot show Advaita. The truth is that everything is one, but in front of the Guru is always greater. And in the words of V. Ganeshananna, he would say, everybody is equal, but Guru is more equal. Jocularly telling that the Guru is more equal than everyone. Although he is the self which is shining in all beings, he is greater to show us that humility. Ganapati Muni, who is a great scholar, he tells that how can I describe your glory, O Ramana? And this beautiful verse Ganapati Muni wrote during one of the Jayantis of Bhagavan. It may have well been the Jayanti after Ramana came down to stay at the feet of Arunachala. He was until then, till 1922, was staying up in the hill in Skandashram with his mother and all the other devotees. But after his mother, Alagammal, attained liberation, the body of Alagammal was brought down to the southeastern slope of Arunachala, and near Pali Tirtham, a samadhi of a jnani, a women saint, was made, and a lingam was established, and that was titled Matru Bhuteshwara, the Bhuteshwara Shiva Arunachaleshwara himself, who bore his own light and gave birth to Vishwacharya Mahanubhava Ramana. To that Matru Bhuteshwara, the samadhi was established, and the present Ramanashramam has grown around that beautiful Sannidhi of Alagammal, and there Ramana started staying. And when devotees asked, Bhagavan, what made you come from up there? The Skandashram was such a beautiful ashram. Everything was set. There was a kitchen, there was a source of water, everything was available. Why did you come down? And Ramana told that very same force which brought me from Madurai to Tiruvannamalai has brought me up from Skandashram to this place, which is now Ramanashramam. And he stayed there, showering his love to all those who came to his presence. And the first Jayanti was being celebrated, and the devotees used to describe that on special occasions like Jayanti and Mahapuja of Mother and Kartikai Deepam, Ramana used to glow with extra charm, and Ramana was glowing in that beautiful charm of his, and all the devotees around requested Ganapati Muni to sing a praise of Bhagwan Ramana. And in answer to the prayers of the devotees, Ganapati Muni wrote this verse where he told, O Ramana, Devi Shaktiriyam Drisho Shrutajana Dvantakshayadaini. O Ramana, in your glance, in your beautiful eyes resides Devi Shakti, the consort of Shiva, and she, just by her glance, she is destroying the Dvanta, the Ajnana, Andhakara of the devotees and protecting them. And in your face is Devi Shri, the consort of Ambujaksha, that is the one with the lotus-eyed Vishnu. Vishnu's wife Shri is shining in your face. Not one Lakshmi, two Lakshmi. It is 1,000 Lakshmis are blossoming like the lotuses on your beautiful face. And in your speech, in your vyavahara, in your activities that you are doing, we see the glory of Brahma Vaduryam, that is the consort of Brahma, Devi, Saraswati, in every one of your activities. O Vishvacharya Mahanubhava Ramana, O the great one Mahanubhava, who has come as the world teacher, Vishvacharya Ramana, O dear one, how can this ordinary man describe your glory? Ganapati Muni knew the power of the glance. So when he came and surrendered to Bhagwan, and it was the first, what he got was the Kataksha of Bhagwan, which is with just by his glance, he Abhishikcha Katakshaya is the word, which is the famous word, which is very, very favorite of Dr. Sarada and even V.S. Ramanan, the earlier president of Ramanashramam, where he used to say how Bhagwan drenched Ganapati Muni with his eyes, with his glance, and then later spoke, and he gave his first spoken Upadesa to Ganapati Muni, which made him have the experience of the truth. And there is an instance which is one of my favorite instances, where after getting the Upadesa from Ramana, Ganapati Muni clearly understands that this Upadesa, this Karuna of the Guru I have got only by the grace of Mother Parvati. So in gratitude, he wanted to write 1,000 verses in gratitude of that Uma who shines in the eyes of Ramana. And he started writing the verses, and he is Ashu Kavi. He can write whatever he wants. The Kavya Kanta, the poetry is in his throat. So he is able to quickly compose most of the verses. 800 verses are already written, 200 more to be written. All of a sudden he realizes that his fingers have been affected by some ailment called Ugursuttu, and he is not able to continue his writing. And the day of submitting that sankalpa that he had done to submit that Uma Sahasram in front of Apita Kuchamba was coming closer, but there was a problem in his hands, and somehow a doctor gets a dream where he says a sadhu is waiting in Arunachala, on the slopes of Arunachala, and he needs your help in operating his fingers. So that doctor comes running up the hill to Virupaksha cave, And then he is checking the hands and fingers of Ramana, because he thinks that the sadhu who stays on the hill Arunachala is Ramana, and he's checking the fingers of Ramana, and the fingers of Ramana is all right. And then Ramana instructs him. The dream suggested that he should operate Ganapati Muni's fingers which have been affected. So he operates those fingers, but still there is the pain and he cannot continue the writing. But on the last day, before it had to get submitted, in the night after dinner, he assembles there with 5 students in front of him, and Ramana in a higher platform who is closing his eyes, and Ganapati Muni is dictating one line after another to all the students, and they are writing down the verses one after the other, each one of the lines in different meters. Yet with great ease, Ganapati Muni is able to dictate one line after the other, and all the 200 verses that has to be written gets finished in a few hours. And Ganapati Muni, after finishing all the 1000 verses, he turns towards Bhagavan with a small, minute pride that he has finished the job that he had taken. And Ramana opens his eyes and says, Nayana, have you written down all that was said? And at that point, that ajnana, andhakara, that sometimes it covers us, makes us filled with that false pride that we are accomplishing something, we are doing something. Even that small pride is destroyed by that kataksha of Bhagavan. And Ramana, when he tells that, Ganapati Muni understands the truth and says, yes, Bhagavan, all that was told was written. And Narasimha Garu from the Ramana Maharshi and Vasishta Ganapati Muni Heritage Trust from Hyderabad, he used to say that Ganapati Muni has many times lost the verses of Uma Sahasram and re-got it, and he has written some of the verses, he has changed some verses. So all these have been done in the first 800 verses. But the last 200 verses which were written in the presence of Bhagavan was never changed. It still remains the same because they have that power of Bhagavan's presence. And he says that in their Kendra, the last 200 verses are chanted very frequently because they have the power of Bhagavan's presence in them. Such is the power of Ramana's Kataksham that it destroys the ignorance of all the devotees, the darkness of the ignorance. To prove us this point, when Ramana was born in Tiruchuli on 30th December 1879 at 1 a.m. early in the morning, when a blind midwife was helping Alagammal in the delivery, when the baby was born, she saw an all-enveloping light and she told, "Oh Alagu, I see light. These blind eyes are seeing light. This is not an ordinary child. It is the light of the Supreme which has come in the form of this infant. It is the Supreme Light itself." And that Supreme Light was drawn to the Meenakshi Puri in Madurai, and he learned the Nayana Vidya from Mother Meenakshi. What is Nayana Vidya? To bestow goodness, to bestow the warmth, to bestow compassion through the glance was learnt by Ramana in the presence of Madurai Meenakshi Amman. And that he with that power of Mother Meenakshi in his eyes, he destroyed the ignorance of all those devotees who came to his presence. And the Ramana's glance is ever available to every one of us. either through the beautiful photos that surrounds us or by His presence which we feel within each one of us, that the presence of that light within, it destroys all our ignorance and brings the light of true knowledge. To that Ramana who has come into our lives to bring the true light in our lives, we offer our salutations. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue the satsang with a sharing on the verses of Ramana Ashtottaram by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the names of Bhagavan in the litany of 108 names, the Ramana Ashtottara Shatanama Stotram and the Shatanamavadi. And each name is centered around or brings before our eyes the life of Bhagavan. Some incidents in the life of Bhagavan. There are some which are purely epithets as well. But Vishwanatha Swami has couched the verses and the names in such a way that one can also at the same time meditate on Bhagavan's life. And we have been meditating on the Nama, Virupaksha Guhavasaya Namaha. And during Bhagavan's stay at Virupaksha cave, we have seen some of the incidents, some of the salient incidents. We saw Munis coming to Bhagavan and getting the Upadesa, spoken Upadesa from him, and publicizing this fact, letting the whole world know that here is the great Maharshi available for all seekers of truth, and he is just not an ordinary human being, he is Bhagavan, and he is the one who is dear to all. He is Ramana, because he is the self. And the self is of the nature of stillness, non-moving, achala. Arunachala, Bhagavan says, is ahame arunachalam. Arunachalamena ahame ninaipavar ahatte veerupai arunachala. Ahame arunachalam. Arunachala is the self. And therefore, Vishwanatha Swami gives to Bhagavan an epithet, Virajat Achala Kritaye Namaha. He is shining as the Achala. Virajat, Virajamana, that is, it is absolutely resplendent. His stillness is resplendent, says Vishwanatha Swami in this Nama. Resplendent stillness. Because the self is perfectly still. That which is all pervading, there is no option for it to move from anywhere to anywhere. When there is limitation, when there is boundary of space, then it can move. Even the earth moves. The whole universes are set to move. They move. There is a movement apart and there's a movement towards. With the gravity on the earth pulls us towards the earth. There are other forces like the centrifugal force which pulls us away from the earth. Because of that there is a balance. But it's all movement. But that which is everywhere, it cannot go anywhere. It cannot come from anywhere. So the self is Achala. And why did the self choose to take the form of a mountain? To reveal to us that it is Achala, that it is unmoving. Sadhuam Swami, in one of his compositions, which is a favorite among many devotees, he says, Amma Arunachalatte Parai Summa Irukkude Adu Pola Marndul Asayadirukka Asai Perukkude. Look at Arunachala, it is just Still it is. It simply is. Summa irukkude. And seeing it, the desire arises to go within into the self and just simply remain. Adirpol amarndu ul asayadirukka, to remain still, to remain unmoving. That desire arises in us. And what of Ramana? Sri Ramanacentre says, Arunachala was wondering, this boy has been brought to spread my glory, to spread my name. But what is he doing? He is sitting still like me, and Amma Adisayam Achalamam Nana. Now I am feeling ashamed of my stillness. To that extent, I am feeling shy to say that I am still. He is so still. He is so unmoving. He does not even speak. He does not find the need to speak. He does not find any need to do anything. Things may be happening, but he is not moving in any way. So that stillness, which was resplendent and which everyone could see and which everyone could imbibe. We have shared earlier also, it is said in the Pachayaman Kovil, in those days only, when Bhagavan was in Virupaksha, he was also in Pachayaman Kovil for some time, then he would come back. And in those days, it is said that sometimes even groups of monkeys would sit in front of him in absolute stillness. And if any one monkey were to move for some reason, imagine, monkeys are said to be most restless. Our mind is compared to the monkeys. Poor things, the monkeys must be wondering, we are more still than the human mind. Why do they compare the mind with us? But the mind is compared to the monkey for its restlessness. But those monkeys would sit absolutely still in Bhagavan's presence. And if by chance any one of them moved a little, Bhagavan would chide them, saying, what kingdom are you losing? Enna rajyam kollapodu? What kingdom are you losing that you have to move? What is happening? Why does the mind move? Why should our mind move at all? Bhagavan is saying, what is the need for the mind to move? What is it going to achieve by moving? Because everything is already told, Mother, everything is happening according to the ordainer's command. Everything is happening. When that is the case, why should we move? Why should we move? And what is the movement of the mind? It is the thought of movement. It is not even a thought that I have done or I have achieved. Even that much is not required, says Bhagavan. He gives the story of Nakirar, where Nakirar was in absolute stillness. And he opened his eyes. And when he opened his eyes, there was a river flowing in front of him. And a leaf fell from the tree that was above him. It fell into the river, and the leaf turned into a fish, which turned into a bird, and it flew away. This happened. And Nakira did not think that he created it. Neither was he even amazed by it. If we were to see such a thing, oh my God, the leaf, it's become a fish, and that's become a bird, and it's flown away. My God, was this a fish? Was this a bird which had become a leaf? Was it a fish which has become a bird and will become a leaf? Lots of amazements, lots of questions we can put about even the simplest of things which are happening around us. Nakir did not do any of those things, but he observed the fact that the leaf became a fish, became whatever the transformations or whatever was happening in front of him, he observed it. To observe something, you have to be separate from that which is observed. There was just the awareness of the action of seeing something. Just the mere awareness. That itself is called the rise of the ego. Bhagavan takes us to that subtlest point where the simplest of movements of the mind, the very rising of the mind to be even an observer is possible, Bhagavan says, only because of the ego. It says, I am now observing this. This is happening. I am not doing it, but it's happening. I am aware that it's happening. So I have the ego or the identity. It's not a matter of egoism, but it's a matter of identity, that I am a separate entity and I'm watching something. I can see something. So there is a movement of watching. There is a division between that which is watched and that which is watching. So it is not still. So Bhagavan says Nakirar went to hell, he became a yoga brashta. And then of course he came out of there, because when he went into that hell, he began to sing of Lord Muruga in that hell, and he had to bless the whole of hell and come out of that. That was a divine Leela. But the story is told to us to say how subtle is the movement of the mind and how vigilant we need to be. How vigilant we need to be. And to show this, Bhagavan remained absolutely shining in that stillness. Viraja Dachala Krataye Namaha. Absolutely still, absolutely unmoving. I often quote the instance of the archival film where where Bhagavan is seated absolutely still. And the film, many people are also devotees are also seated, and there's no movement actually happening. And there's a close-up which comes to Bhagavan. And for some time, that close-up, that camera remains on Bhagavan alone. And it looks like a photograph. One may wonder that it's just a photograph which has been extended. Why is it called a film? But then if one watches intently, one can see the incense stick is there, and the incense is moving in front of Bhagavan very lightly. One can see that agarbatti, that incense which is moving in front of Bhagavan, and one recognizes, oh, there is movement. It is a movie, but Bhagavan is absolutely still, and he is resplendent. Viraja Dachalakriti. His resplendence, even Ujwal Jagadeesh just now referred to his birth as a resplendence which was seen by the blind midwife over there. And during the Virupaksha days, there was a devotee called Raghavachari. And he came to Bhagavan and he had asked a few questions, and he also wanted to see Bhagavan's true form. And Bhagavan disappeared. I mean, in his eyes, in his vision, he was seeing Bhagavan sitting there, and then there was nothing. There was nobody. There was nothing to see. And after a few seconds or some time, you cannot measure these things in terms of time, these experiences are not bound by time or space. So it happened. One cannot say how long. And then he saw a huge light. He saw Bhagavan as a light. And that light was so amazing, so blinding, that for many days after that, he was afraid in men to come into Bhagavan's presence. We see also that Muruganar Swami had a vision of Bhagavan as dazzling light. And we see that Humphreys also describes Bhagavan not as light, but he says God was radiating terrifically from that corpse. He says the body was just like a corpse. Humphreys also came during Virupaksha years and saw Bhagavan. That is the kind of light of the self that Bhagavan is, and he stayed and revealed to those who came this magnitude of the self during the Virupaksha years, as he did earlier and later. But we are now meditating on Bhagavan's stay in the Virupaksha days, where Vishwanath Swami also refers to him as the Viraja Dachala Kritaye Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ram.
அருணாச்சலம் என்ன அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வெறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலா அழகு சுந்தரம் போலகமும் நீயும் முற்று அபிநமாயிருப்போம் அருணாச்சலா ஆகம் புகந்தீர் துன்னக குஹசிரையாய் அமர்வித்ததென் கொல்லருணாச்சலா ஆறு என்னை ஆண்டனை அகற்றிடல் அகிலம் பழித்திடும் அருணாச்சலா இப்பழி தப்புனை ஏன் நினைப்பித்தாய் இனி யார் விடுவார் அருணாச்சலா ஈன்றிடும் அன்னையிற் பெரிதருள் புரிவோய் இதுவோ உனதருள் அருணாச்சலா உனையே மாற்றி ஓடாதுள்ளத்தின் மேல் உறுதியாயிருப்பாய் அருணாச்சலா ஊற்றுடம்பிடாதுன்னை கண்டடங்கிட உன்னழகை காட்டருணாச்சலா என்னை அழித்திப்போத் என்னை கலவாவிடு இதுவோ ஆண்மை அருணாச்சலா ஏன் இந்த உறக்கம் என்னை பிறர் இழுக்க இது உனக்கழகோ அருணாச்சலா ஐம்புல கள்வர் அகத்தினில் புகும்போது அகத்தில் நீலையோ அருணாச்சலா ஒருவனாம் உன்னை ஒளித்தவர் வருவார் உன்ஷூதே இது அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாடி அன்பர்களும் வாடி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாடி. Namo Ramana. We conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan here at the meditation hall at Ramana Maharshi Heritage Center, and the chanting of the Ashtottaram will be done by Vaibhavji and Prarthana, followed by Ujwal Jagadeesh, and the Aarti song will also be by Ujwal Jagadeesh here at the Ramana Maharshi Heritage Auditorium. Namo Ramana.
नमो रमण। भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मा रामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविदायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ आर्द्रविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनां पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्ताणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः ऋन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकरान् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो